My name's Tony. I'm a crackhead who drank too much. And it's by the grace of God and Cocaine Anonymous, I haven't had to take a shot of dope or a shot of liquor to change my outlook on life today, and that's a pretty good place for me to be. I wanted to read something real quick. 132. I heard the guys cutting up and stuff when we was reading who is a cocaine addict. And the reason they do that is because of this. We have been speaking to you of serious, sometimes tragic things. We have been dealing with alcohol and cocaine in its worst aspect, but we aren't a glum lot. If newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. You know, Cocaine Anonymous gave me a life. I didn't have one before I got here. I was looking at that room. You know, God, and if I say I really mean God, okay? Because he's the one that did all this. It wasn't me. It was by far me. But he has kept me teachable with Cocaine Anonymous and working through you guys. Y'all helped me to remain teachable. And on the way down here, I was still teachable because I had two decisions. I'm very non-spiritual when driving, especially in traffic. So I had two options, and this was being open-minded. I could let my wife drive, and I could be spiritually fit, or I could buy duct tape. So I decided to let my wife drive it. It was an easier, softer way. I come into the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous the first time in 1988. I don't have that long sober. I thought I'd stayed sober 6 months after treatment. My wife said it was more like 6 weeks. And I went back out, and all those jets came true. You know, all that stuff that because when I was in treatment, people would come in and tell their stories, and I hadn't did all that. Not as bad as they were. I wasn't as bad as they were. That's my thinking at that time. And so when I went into treatment, they gave me the big book, the 12 and 12, and the NA book, and all that stuff. And they gave me the set of steps, and you had to answer all these questions. And they said you gotta work the 12 steps before you can get out, or the first 5 steps before you get out of treatment. So I worked all 12 steps the first night in treatment. And I chased nurses for the next 28 days. That was my first encounter with Cocaine Anonymous. That's when y'all planted that seed in my head that there was hope. But then, I went back out and did all those things. And then I come back into the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous in 2000. And when I come back into the rooms in 2000, I truly believe that God reached his hands down into the depths of hell and found the worst person he could find and pulled him out and throwed me into the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous. Because I wasn't human. I didn't care about anyone. I was selfish, self-centered to the extreme, like the book talks about. And this time when I went into treatment, they gave me the same books they gave me 12 years earlier. And the same questions they gave me 12 years earlier. And they took me back here and they showed me this room where I was going to be staying for the next 28 days. And I walked in and I looked. And it had one of them plastic mattresses. You know, the kind in jail, the kind you got tied a sheet around to keep it on. I don't know if any of y'all have been to jail, but I've been there and I had to do that. And I sat down on that bed and I started thinking, well, maybe I overreacted and maybe I'm not that bad. You know, I just didn't want to live 3 days before because I'd gotten to that point the big book talks about. I didn't want to live high and I didn't want to die, And so I stayed in there, and they had rules in this treatment facility that you couldn't wear a hat in any of the buildings or you got detail. This was a state-funded treatment center because I didn't have insurance. I was a crackhead. Crackheads don't have insurance. or cars or houses or phones or any of that. But I had this old Tennessee hat. I'm a Tennessee Vols fan. I know. But I've been wearing that hat for as far back as I can remember, and I wore it everywhere. So every time I'd go in the building, that CA or that peer advisor, she'd detail. So I cleaned toilets for 28 days over a fucking Tennessee hat. Excuse my language, I'm sorry. That was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, because, see, I was supposed to speak on the spiritual things Sunday, and God seemed fit for that, hey, there ain't no way he's going to get through that without cussing. We're going to have to move him up to Friday, you know. See, that's why I say I'm God's favorite, and a lot of people don't like that, but, you know, God's been with me. He's the one that's done this, because I believe God works through you guys. Anyways, I make it through the 28 days of cleaning toilets, and this counselor I had, she said, look around the room, there's about 15 or 16 of us in there. She said, maybe one of y'all make it. Oh, and it pissed me off. Why am I going to be here for 28 days if I ain't going to make it, you know? So I believe I stayed sober for the first 2.5 years on resentment, because I was going to prove to her I was going to be the one that stayed sober, you know. And then, let's see, they told me when I was in treatment to get a sponsor, and they took us to this Cocaine Anonymous meeting in Nashville, and they said, you know, in treatment they told you, find somebody that's got what you want, right? So this guy pulls up, and he's got this big, pretty Z71 pickup truck, and I thought, man, I like that truck. He gets out of the truck, and he walks around, he opens up the door, and he pulls his stool out, and this pretty little blonde gets out. I said, damn, I like that woman there. And I said, he's got everything I want. I'm going to ask him to be my sponsor. And I did ask him to be my sponsor, and he did have what I wanted. He had a sponsor who had taken him through the 12 steps of Cocaine Anonymous and taught him a set of spiritual principles which to live by, that he removed his desire to drink and drug. You know, so that was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself again. So he made that truck all shiny and pretty, and that pretty woman, you know, and he got it all, because he knew that's what I liked, you know. And so he tricked me. Yeah, he tricked me. And, you know, I stayed sober 2.5 years in that time, and I would go to the store. I found out if you wasn't doing dope and drinking and all that stuff, you get a job, you get paid on Fridays, right? And so I take that money on Fridays and I go buy stuff, and I feel good, you know. I go buy shoes. I love shoes. You can't tell today because I just got off work and I forgot to get my good shoes. But I'd buy shoes, and I fill my closet up with shoes, and then I fill my closet up with clothes, and my wife's closet up with clothes, and my kids, you know, filled their closets up with clothes. Then I bought new furniture, and, you know, and all this stuff, and, you know, we had food in the house too, you know. You know, and every time I do something like that and I get paid and I buy something for the family, and I felt like I was being the man that God wanted me to be. You know, I was going to meetings. I was chairing meetings. That meeting that I asked my sponsor to be at the day I got out of treatment, he handed me the key to this building, and it's a big old church, and it had brass chandeliers and brass doorknobs, and I'm thinking, boy, I can get rich off this church, you know. That's that crackhead thinking still. But he gave me that key, and he said, this is your meeting for the next 6 months. You'd be here every Friday night, and you'd set up these chairs right here, and you'd set out these pamphlets, and then you go sit on that porch, and you'd read that book, and we'll go over it when I get there. And then he said, when people start arriving, I want you to get up and I want you to shake their hand, tell them you're glad they came. Thank you for being a part of my recovery. And that's what I had to do for the first 6 months of my sobriety. And that gave me the idea, you know, Fridays I got paid and I had money in my pocket. I don't know about y'all, but it was hard for me to have money in my pocket and not go get what I wanted or what I liked. And so that meeting gave me a place to go, a safe place, for the first 6 months of my sobriety. And so anyways, I buy all this stuff, and I buy new furniture, new stereos, had speakers about this tall, about that wide, and then I started buying cars and trucks and motorcycles, boy, and I was feeling good about who I was. And I was getting up in the morning, I was asking God to remove the desire to drink and drug from me, and to help me be the person He wanted me to be throughout the day. And then when I get up and put my clothes on, I'd walk out that door, I'd leave God at home. And so, anyways, living in the projects, they don't like it when you take up 4 or 5 parking spots. Right? So God gave me this little house up in Ashland City, Tennessee. That's where I live now. And so I got to move up there, and that was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself too, because I was still living in them projects. My best using buddy across the hall, my dope man upstairs, and he got me away from there. And that's why I got this country boy accent, because he got me out of the city and put me out there in the country. And I've been out there for 20 years now, so I talk country. That's something else God and Cocaine Anonymous did for me, But so I found out I had this 16-year-old daughter. I was 2.5 years sober. Found out I had this 16-year-old daughter right in between my 15 and my 17-year-old son, and I've been with the same woman for 20 years at this time. Right? And I had to come clean. I couldn't hide it. They wanting 16 years back child support. You can't hide that shit. So, I had to come clean with my wife. And when I did, she told me, she said, I'm done. She said, I've been putting up with you for 20-something years, and I fed your kids, made sure your kids was taken care of. I put money on your books when you was in jail. And I kept everything going when you was out doing whatever. And now you going to come in here and tell me this? She says, I'm taking it all. She says, I'm taking your house. I'm taking your truck. I'm taking your motorcycle. I'm taking your damn shoes. And where I'd been leaving God at home every day and not having that conscious contact with Him, when that hit me, y'all know what I did. I went out one night, and I'm sitting there, and y'all got to tell me what time it is, because I don't know, I have no idea. Okay. I went out, and I always end up the same place every time, in some dope house somewhere in Nashville, right? And I'm looking around the room, and everybody's out, and they're all miserable, right? And I remember sitting in the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous cutting up with these guys and people like y'all and having a good time. And I'm thinking, I don't want this no more. Plus, the police was in the alley and down on the corner. So the good alcoholic addict I am, I called my sponsor. Hey, I need to ride up out of here. And him and a friend of his, they came and got me out of that crack house that night. And he took me back to his house and told me to go take a shower. I don't know about y'all, but when I smoke crack, I don't take baths. And he made me go take a shower, and then he let me lay down on his couch. And when I woke up, my wife woke me up saying, we'll work it out. So my sober date is February 17th, 2003. And my sponsor told me, said, you got to figure out what you're doing wrong, because the program of Cocaine Anonymous does not fail. If you thoroughly follow their path, it will not fail. And I don't know about y'all, but my sponsor told me that the big book and the 12 and 12 are the truths. I've got to live by the truths. This is operating manuals on addicts, alcoholics like me. And I have to believe it. And he said, you got to believe it as much as you believe the Bible. When he told me that, it didn't bother me none because I didn't believe the Bible. But I took it to heart. I took it to heart when he said that this is the only way you're going to be able to stay sober, Tony. You got to figure out what it is you wasn't doing. And I was going to meetings. I was talking to my sponsor. I worked the first 4 or 5 steps. And I was doing everything I thought they told me to do. But like I said, when I get up and pray in the morning and I get ready to leave, I left God in the house. For an addict like me, I've got to keep God with me at all times. It's not this sometime God, or this and he ain't to get you God. He's a loving and caring God, and it's Christ. I'm just going to tell you that's who my higher power is. It don't have to be yours, and I won't hold it against you if it ain't. But I got to be truthful to who I am now. And I was the one that didn't believe in God when I got here. This lady, Tommy, she got sober with Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson, right? She got 100 years sober. I don't know how many years she got sober. But we were sitting in I got to introduce her at a treatment center in Nashville. And so she met like 200 or 300 people in this treatment center that day. And then I went to the dining hall, and I was eating, and she come by there. She put her hand on my shoulder. She said, Tony, when you quit trying to define God, you'll find God. How this lady knew that I was searching for God blowed my mind. And then that's when I started believing. I was acting as if, y'all hear that all the time? Act as if, and that's what I'd been doing. But when that lady, she like 80, 90 years old. How come she could remember my name after meeting 200 people? That's a God thing. Anyways, so I found God that day. And it was right after I did my 5th step, an honest 5th step. And it felt like something was lifted off of me. So I went on and I got back in the middle of the boat. And I started Cocaine Anonymous meetings in Nashville, all over Nashville, doing service work, GSR, CHIPS, everything. I even come to Jackson when we brought the convention to Nashville. Well, I went to Jackson every 3 months to meet with Memphis to bring the area convention to Nashville. So I did all that stuff. See, there's that I stuff. I told y'all, that's God. That's not me. He did all that stuff. But so I've been sober for a little while now, and I got these guys that come to my house. God gave me a house up there in Cheatham County, and these guys come to my house every Sunday and help me. About 12 of them. My wife said, when you going to quit taking sponsees on? That's enough. I said, no, it ain't never enough. It said, because on that board at that meeting, it says whenever somebody reaches out, I'm supposed to be there. And I truly believe that the only reason I have the house that I have is because God gave it to me for service. Because, and all of it, He's gave me a life and everything. And I'm not the smartest person in the room. Y'all way smarter than me. Y'all probably more in touch with God than I am. But I'm always willing to do service. Always. And I think that's one of the main reasons that I've been able to stay sober is because I'm willing to be of service to God and those about us. It don't even say alcoholics or addicts. It says for God, to God and those about us. So that's anybody. That's holding the door for the person that can't, or whatever. Anyways, so I'm sober, and I guess 2010, I get this phone call that my oldest son had crashed and hit a telephone pole and had passed away. He was 25 years old. Cocaine Anonymous surrounded me. They held me up to God and Cocaine Anonymous held me up until I could stand up again on my own. I mean, my best friend in Cocaine Anonymous, I had to run his ass off. I mean, he'd been at my house for 2.5 weeks after the funeral, and I said, look, you got to go home. You got a wife, you know. You got a wife and a job. You need to go home. But it was only by him and the network of friends and people that I'd met in Cocaine Anonymous was the only reason I was able to make it through that. That and the faith in a God that has all power. 6 months later, my 23-year-old son grieved himself to death over his older brother dying in a car crash, and I found him dead of an overdose. And Cocaine Anonymous once again surrounded me and held me up. You know, I've heard it in the rooms before where that people say, my worst day in recovery is better than my best day getting high. That's not my story. You know, I've lost and if the truth be known, probably one of the main reasons I got sober was to try to save them. Because they had lived through my addiction all the way up to they were adults, you know. And so I wanted to try to be that example to them to maybe they could get help. And I lost them both. And then, so I get back in the middle of the boat. And I don't know about y'all, but when anytime something like that happens, I've got to get real close to Cocaine Anonymous. Get real close to God, get real close to church, and get real close to Cocaine Anonymous, because that's what saves me. The big book says when all else fails, work with another alcoholic. I truly believe that. So I move on. My wife, she's out there. She's out there. She's taking pills and doing what she did because she lost 2 sons. They say that it's harder on the mama than it is the daddy, and it was hard as hell on me. So I know it had to be hard on her. Anyways, I lost her in 2015. My wife for 36 years. And again, Cocaine Anonymous surrounded me and held me up. And they even helped me pay for a burial because we didn't have insurance at that time. And so, and that's the bad news. That's the bad news. Life's gonna come at us, no matter who we are, what we are. Life's gonna hit us. It's not that life's doing it to me. It's just doing it. So since then, found out I had a grandson. He was 3 years old. My oldest son's son, and his mom she's either in jail or whatever. So I got custody of him. I've been raising him since he was 3. He's never seen me high. He's never seen me drunk. He's seen me lose my temper a little bit, but not a lot. Not like I used to. And he's doing really well. He's in boxing. He plays football. He's doing pretty good in school. And all those guys that come to my house on Sundays, those are examples for him because they're all young. They're all 20s and 30s and stuff. And he sees them staying sober and stuff. And so it's a good influence on him. He knows the Serenity Prayer. He knows the Lord's Prayer. He's probably been in more meetings than I know these two over here. Because I've been taking him to meetings since he was 3. And he was born addicted. And he picks up a chip on his birthday. He got 9 years, or 10 years now. So God gave me this grandson to raise. Then he figured out he might have gave me too much. He said, I don't think you can do it, Tony. And I said, help me, God, help me. And he gave me a wife. So I've been married for almost 2 years now, I think. She's come into my life, and she's in recovery, and we're growing spiritually together. And that means the world to me, because before my wife passed away, she wasn't growing the same way I was growing spiritually. Because I got to have that conscious contact. I got to have that God thing all the time. And my wife, she didn't have to have it all the time at that time. So we was growing apart. And now God's given me a wife that we grow together in this recovery thing we call life. You know, I thank God for saving my soul, and I thank Cocaine Anonymous for saving my ass. You know, and there was three or four words. How much time? Okay. There was 3 or 4 words that I understood in this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous when my sponsor told me I had to start reading it. And that was bludgeoned, crushed, beaten, and mangled. I don't know if y'all real addicts like me, but y'all know what those words mean. The only book that I've ever read from cover to cover besides the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 and 12 was Winnie the Pooh. And that's because I like the pictures. But my sponsor told me when I started reading this book, is that my phone? Rookie. My sponsor told me when I started reading this big book, he said, you need to find what you can relate to in this book. That way you know that book's about you. Right? I said, man, this book was written in 1930-something. Ain't no that shit going to apply to me. And then I read this. If I can find it. Yeah. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol and cocaine and all mind-altering substances had become my master. I don't know about y'all, but when I was in active addiction, I put that before everything. Family, God, everything. And I don't have to do that today. You know, I really, you know, even with my family passing like they did, the thought of using wasn't there. Now, homicide or suicide was there, but the using part wasn't there. I don't want to use. No matter what goes on in my life outside of me that happens, I don't want to use. Because Cocaine Anonymous and these 12 steps has gave me a way of life that when I get up in the morning and I look in the mirror, I'm okay with what I see. I was never that before. You know, when I went into treatment, I weighed 112 pounds soaking wet. With my jaws all sucked in, eyes all back in my head. And when I got out of treatment, I got up to 210. I said, nah, I can't go that route. And so I finally got to 182, and I'm comfortable there. If I could just get it out of my belly and in my legs, I'd be real happy. You know, the 10th, 11th, and 12th step I try to live in on a daily basis. I get up in the morning and I turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. That's my third step. I had to shorten things up because I can't remember stuff real good. And so I shortened it up. And I found that whenever I'm disturbed, I need to get away from that problem, calm down, then go back and do it. See, because for years I felt, I reacted, then I thought about the consequences. And y'all taught me that I'm doing it wrong. I'm supposed to feel, think about it, and take action. See, I had that thinking and that reaction backwards. And you know, I found out that if I apply these spiritual principles to my life, I can almost get along with almost everybody. And even if I can't get along with them, I know how to not be as bad as I used to be. I'm trying not to tell much about my past, but I was arrested 64 times with 158 charges. It was anywhere from driving on revoked license to attempted murder. Most of my charges were assault, aggravated assault, and that kind of stuff. Thanks to Cocaine Anonymous and God today, I've had them all expunged. No felonies no more. That's amazing. Plus it costed a whole lot of damn money. But I want to close with a vision for you. Y'all like that? Yeah. That trudge the road of happy destiny. You know, I had to look that word up because I didn't know what it meant either. I thought it meant something hard, right? Trudge means walking with purpose. And that's what Cocaine Anonymous and God has given me today, is purpose. It's purpose to have my hand stuck out when the newcomer comes in and say, hey, welcome home. All right, y'all tell me what page it's on. I'm in the way back in the back of the book. I know it's around 160. Yeah. Yeah. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answer will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something that you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right. That's huge right there. And great events will come to pass for you and countless others. The great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road to happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you to then. Thank you.